Speaking of reliability, a podcast with good friends talking with you about reliability engineering topics. Welcome to Speaking of Reliability. This is Fred Schenkelberg.
And this is Greg Hutchins. Hi, Fred. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. Well, we were just chatting. We are kind of thinking of an idea, and it's not well formed yet. There's not a clear, I don't even have a title down for this thing, but I think it's worth talking about. Is what's the point of a quality engineer or a reliability engineer or a risk manager within an organization? And there's many other roles, right? What's the point of having that person within the organization, as opposed to, say, a mechanical engineer that's chartered with create the enclosure such that it survives riding around in the hood of a car, right? They have a very clear specification. They have technical details of knowing how to design something that will fit that and can be manufacturable. But a reliability engineer, we're not in charge of making it reliable. It's not our job to, the old adage of throw it over the wall. I think quality had that happen for a long time, where somebody would create that box for under the hood and they throw it over the wall. The quality is, here, you make it quality and make it a good one. Right? And that doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. So when you boil it down, what is it the role of a safety officer, a reliability engineer or manager, or a quality engineer or manager? What is it that they're really expected to do?
That comes down to a really basic question. What's the value proposition to the organization? Lately, over the last couple of years, we've been giving a lot of talks on the future of work, favorite topic of ours. And our premise is that every profession that has soft borders to it is going to be disrupted. Mm-hmm. And what you're really talking about are soft borders and risk management and reliability and quality. If everybody is responsible for quality, for example, what's the role of a quality professional? And I think part of it is to support great decision making. Quite often, as like you said, the quality reliability engineer is not responsible for the decision, but they're responsible for supporting a great decision.
Yeah. And that supporting, what I interpret that as, and what I think of it as, is that it's providing a view of the world that may not be immediately available to the decision maker, or it's a set of data or test results or assessment, or, it's the product of our work, whether it's an FMEA or an environmental test, is not just that we did an FMEA or did an environmental test or met this standard for some exposure to, hazardous chemicals or whatever. It's not checking the box. It's providing information that informs and educates and helps people become better at what they do. And primarily the person that has to say, yep, this product's ready to ship, or no, let's shut this line down and improve this, and this, or whatever. It's the folks that are in charge of making decisions of where resources get allocated. And it's rarely the folks like reliability, quality, and so on that do that.
So a couple of things. I agree with you in a lot of ways. It basically comes down to providing context and providing perspective, providing a point of view. So there was a program I was watching on YouTube the other day, and I'll bring it up. The high-tech companies where you work have individual contributors, ICs, mm-hmm. and they go from a level 1 to a level 9. Level 9 right now, L9 for Google, makes over $1 million a year, but there aren't that many of them. Again, they don't manage anybody. They're just simply very good experts, or that's redundant. They're experts in their knowledge domain. And a software engineer was asked, how did somebody go from a level 1, low level, to a level 6 IC, individual contributor? And again, a level 6 at Google makes about $500,000 a year. as a programmer. And anyway, the guy who was asked the question thought about it for a moment and basically said context and perspective. The level 6 engineer knows what problem is important to solve and what decisions need to be made. The level 1, 2, 3, 4 engineers or software or coders, programmers, they basically look at the problem and can solve the problem, but they don't provide the larger picture of understanding the perspective.
Well, it's one thing is where somebody's saying, all right, we need this functionality or we need this bug fixed, and it's served up to you, and you go away and solve that in some amount of time, versus the one that's saying, this is a problem that needs to be solved. Is that an example of the ability of the perspective and context?
Yes, it's the critical problem to the organization that needs to be solved. I mean, a classic example is when we go into a project, we ask, what problem are we trying to solve? Who's the customer? Why do they need to solve it? Simple 3 questions.
I would add on to that sequence is, how will you know when it's done right? What's the criteria for success? How do you know when you're right? We got it right.
That's right.
The pain goes away, or the profit goes up, or the customers are happy, or there's usually something that says, oh, okay, we got it.
Well, I would basically offer another visual, which I've used for a lot of years. Entry-level engineer basically looks at the knothole of the tree. A director-level engineer understands the forest. So, as you become more proficient in engineering, whatever discipline, mechanical, electrical, you go from looking at the knothole of the tree to the limb, the trunk, tree, and then finally the forest. And asking those right questions from having the right perspective, I think, is what quality professionals, reliability professionals can add value to the decision. Are we solving the right problem?
Yeah. Now, there's another aspect to this, though. I find a very successful reliability or quality person is adept at changing their perspective and their language. If you're talking to a technician on the floor that's running a piece of equipment or trying to, get it running again or whatever, you don't start talking about the forest and the impact on the world's ecology. It's just not helpful for that circumstance. It's more, do you have the parts and the equipment and the skills and training you need? Or, have you thought of this, or how about this part? How's this work or not work? And it's a whole different realm. And knowing when to get out of the way and when to stop pestering them too, I think counts. Well, I guess that counts at all levels. But if the CEO walks up and they say, what are you doing? It's not, well, we're loosening these 3 bolts in a particular order so that we can remove this flange and reseat this seal with a new polymer, this, that, and the other thing. He's like, well, we're trying to get the line back up and running. If we had the right equipment and tools and did the preventative maintenance on this wouldn't happen, and here's the bigger picture. Here's the maintenance program kind of gets pulled into it. The board shows up and it's like, it's a different conversation. This is, we're down for 2 minutes and we've lost 3 cents on our stock price, due to the lost productivity. Completely different realms or perspectives. And I think people that are really good, in my opinion, are able to match the perspective of the person they're talking to.
And another example would be the person on the line is focusing on the how. The person a little higher up is focusing on the what, how much, and then finally at a higher level, why are we doing this?
Yeah. Now, and you've also used I know in our previous conversation, you talked about different levels of methods or techniques or tools, a transactional level, and I'm drawing a complete blank on what the other ones were. Strategic, I think, was one of them, but.
Yeah, largely the 3 levels that we use are the enterprise level. The second level down is what we would call the programmatic project process level. And the lowest level is the transactional, or the product level, the service level, the how.
Right. We're making a product. Somebody buys it and there's a transaction of money. I think of it that way. And then
Exactly.
there's somebody that's saying, all right, now we have to build a factory and supply chain mechanisms and all these other pieces to actually go about having everything in the right place so we can make the product and the right people and so on. And then enterprises, are we even making the right product? Let's move into this market.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Great example.
But the basic idea though is I see job descriptions all the time, right? And for years and years and years. And so we want a master's or PhD, or equivalent experience. We want this, we want that. Somebody familiar with these software packages, somebody that could design a test, somebody could do this. Somebody's a good communicator. No, it's not good communicator. It's always great communicator. And it's like, and join a dynamic team. It's always dynamic. I want a laid back team. You never see that in a job opening. Join our laid back team. We take Fridays off, kind of thing. What is it you want me to really do? And I've had a few bosses over the years that say, that's great. You can run this test and you get the experiment and everything else, but you're not helping me interpret it. What does this really mean? And what other tests should you be running that I haven't asked you to run yet? It's kind of nudging you out of that first level engineer role. It's like, all right, now you got to make up your own work. Look at the process and what is it that needs tweaking or improvement or changes, and help us see that. And I don't see companies saying, bring your expertise in here and share your insights and perspective with us. You don't see that.
The task orientation is really the transactional orientation. What companies are looking for, and I'll just offer another example, and this is much harder. You're right. Every job description for, say, individual contributor to, say, a second level manager has all of these attributes.
Manage a budget, write performance reviews, encourage and excellence in your employees, and like, okay,
process based.
Yeah,
but you can really separate the managers, the good managers, from other managers by one simple metric: have you run a P&L, and can you make money for us? For people in a company these days, running a P&L, profit loss organization, and being entrepreneurial and making money is really the essence now of success, I think, in organizations. It's outcomes based, it's measurable, and it follows a life cycle from conceiving a product and service to putting it out there and seeing how it works, if it generates income.
Yeah. Now, I see that for managers that, and it kind of gives you that chicken and egg thing. How do you get a role like that unless you've already done it, kind of thing, which happens. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any that are getting hired that way. But the individual contributors might be really, really good at creating ideas out of recognizing problems that we have the bandwidth or skills or capabilities to create a solution for. I mean, when I was at HP, there was a whole building full of these people that, were working on things that might maybe become a product 10, 15 years from now, and some of their stuff was just amazing. He was like, why is this not a product? And some of it was like, what in the world are you doing? But that was the investment the company was making but those were individual contributors by and large that were brilliant in material science or in this area or that area or whatever. And then when they would get close enough to an idea that goes, this might be a product or could be a solution to these kinds of problems, then it would get handed off to people that would be the entrepreneur type. Let's figure out all the hurdles to get this thing to actually be profitable. And it might not be anything to do with the original concept. I think that's a different skill set altogether.
You're right. So how do we pull all this stuff together for our listeners? That's my next question.
Well, one of the things is whatever role or spot you land in within an organization or even as a consultant is you're bringing in your own skills and biases and experiences and all those other pieces to it. And part of it is, and I don't know if this is good career advice or not, but never do what you're told to do. It's just, Greg, you've talked to so many clients and they'll say, hey, we need a risk management program set up. And you're going to ask a ton of questions about what in the world do they really mean by that? What do they really want? What problem are you trying to solve? Right? And I've had people come to me and say, hey, we need a reliability prediction. And I'll say, I don't like reliability predictions because they give you pretty useless information. What do you really need? And if it's, we need to check a box so we can do the sale to this organization that insists we do a prediction. And okay, well, you can find somebody cheaper than me to do that. Go away. He says, but if we need to know if it's good enough, right? Well, here's some other ways you can actually answer that question. Then I'll engage with them. But that's what I mean is don't do what you're told. If they said, we need a prediction and I just turn the crank and send them a bill, I'm not serving them at all. I'm not helping them actually solve the problem that's underlying the request. And so the job description says somebody to run environmental tests and halt tests and run all of our stuff in our test lab. All right. To what point? What is it I'm actually trying to contribute to this organization? If you don't ask how you're contributing or adding value, I think you're missing the point of our role as, educated, experienced professionals coming into the organization. But coupled with that is, how does this make a difference? How can I actually, if this report goes upstairs and it sits on somebody's desk and never gets read, in my opinion, even as a young engineer, was, well, I'm going to stop doing it and see if anybody notices. I got other stuff I'd rather be doing. If it's not useful, don't do it. It's just that simple. And if the boss says, no, you got to turn this crank every 2 minutes, you got to, what was the Lost TV series? Somebody was there and had to push the button every 5 minutes or something. And it wasn't connected to anything, kind of thing. But it's that mindset of reinvent your role, do the things in your role that blend together what you're good at, what you really want to do well at, and what actually makes a difference, what actually helps people make better decisions or creates value to the organization or whatever. I think in that context, then wherever you are in the organization, you're actually more valuable to the organization. You become not replaceable. If it's just somebody to push the button every 5 minutes, we can get a robot to do that.
And we can automate it. Yeah. Exactly. Especially with AI coming down the path, a lot of things, routine activities are going to be automated. So I think it's important for our listeners' professional credibility as well as employability to know three things: their value proposition, how do they make a difference, and three, how do they support decision making?
Yeah. No, good summary. That you mentioned AI and stuff. I just sent out a note saying, hey, we're looking for ideas for the title of the book that Carl and I are working on. And one of them said, well, just tie it to one of the fad terms going on right now, like AI or artificial. And he said, yeah, use it as artificial reliability. I said, well, maybe not.
I'd make it simple. Just simply say, what problem are you trying to solve? And leave it at that.
Well, world peace, it's a good point. Good summary. And it's one of the things I've run into, some from just key people I've worked with and have really tried to help me understand what it is I'm supposed to be doing. I like the Google story of, different perspectives, context and perspective. I think that's a real thinking that through as to how you approach one problem or another. All that makes sense. So if you're listening to this and you're going, what in the world are you guys talking about? My boss says I do this, I do that, or my boss doesn't say anything about what I'm supposed to do, and I'm making a difference. I'd like to hear either one of those stories and or questions related to this. It's more a career thing, isn't it, Greg?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of us now are reevaluating where we are, where we're going, and how we're going to get there. And decision making, that's what it's all about.
I think so. Yeah. I heard that the other day is that it's no longer a career ladder, it's a career portfolio.
Nice. Nice.
Options. What are your options? So anyway, let us know what you think. Head over to accendoreliability.com/go/SOR, and you can find a contact form and a way to record a message to us, or you can find Greg and I and the other hosts over on LinkedIn and or on our About pages. There's plenty of ways to get in touch with us. Every time I say that now, it's kind of a pattern. I'm hearing all of the players getting clicked off because they know it's the end. Maybe we should do a giveaway or something at the end for those that stay with us to the end.
Yeah. Secret giveaway. Your book, one of my books. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And do something to pay attention for 20 minutes. But anyway, we'll make it work for the listener.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening. We certainly appreciate it, and have a great rest of your day. Here it's Tuesday, so it's going to be a good day.
Happy day.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Greg. Talk to you later.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Speaking of Reliability. We invite you to join the conversation. If you have a question or a topic that you think we should discuss in a future show, please let us know. You can find a comment box below the episode show notes, or just leave a note as part of a review on iTunes.